All right, so Vinny's got it all set in there. Got the valve covers back on, clips back on, and just a little bit on the thickums here. So on these, this being an 04, there is no rubber grommet or collet in there like you would find on an 03. And there's a raised portion on here that centers that for the thickum. You got your 3 connectors laying down in there. They'll go in the base of this unit. Okay, and a common problem after doing injectors and or taking the thickum off is you'll get glow plugs or something, and that means you didn't fully get them seated and engaged in here. And so we're going to see if we can catch that. We're going to listen when he sets it up in here. There you go, double click. Double click.
It's not wanting to click. Oh, there was one. That one didn't double click, but
It's nice and tight though.
yeah, there's no, that was the outer thing. There's no coming out of it. Now,
Okay. So
you see how it sits down, these beveled edges, and then the bracket goes on top, which this one they cut usually has the bracket that comes up and goes to the air ram intake. It's not the original nuts that go on it, but they work. And then we have a rear plate that's for the 8mm bolts that go in the very back.
I'm gonna get out of his way because I'm in his way. Yeah, we use a lot of gear wrenches in the shop. We use Snap-on in the shop. We use Mac, Cornwell, Blue Point. It's just like anybody. Gonna have a combo of everything. A little bit of Craftsman, not so much.
Cobalt.
A lot of Cobalt. Reason for the Cobalt is if we're going to modify a wrench or modify a ratchet or modify a socket for a custom application, Cobalts are cheap. They're actually pretty accurate on their sizing. And rather destroy a little $6 or $7 socket than destroying one of my $30, $40 Snap-on sockets. Although I have cut up Snap-on wrenches and made them custom. Obviously they're no longer warrantable, but over 30 some years of doing this, you kind of modify a lot of tools.
Don't forget to hook your glow plug harness back up, because you unhook it to get it out of your way. Turn down your oil dipstick.
pretty much put this whole side all the way back together, obviously. You always want to check that O-ring right there on the what would be considered a PCV system, but you always want to check that little guy, make sure he's still good. If he's questionable at all, just rip him out of there and put a new one in there. This one obviously wasn't leaking and fits in there nice and snug, but you can see where that bracket would have been right there, and they cut it off. You know, tire modification, that's up to them, not me.
No, that goes in after this. This goes in first. You can get your air box in
I was finger questioning him.
after this. Because this is up in the air, it's a pain in the butt to get your air box back in with that down and hanging. Clean up any messes you got here.
Pull that puppy back up so he's back up in there. The far side in.
This is sometimes a little cumbersome, but you always start with your horn first. Make sure get that part in. Wash your hose you got here. I do that just so we don't leak coolant. We don't actually have to drain any coolant. Reach around the back side and help align it. Make sure you get your mass airflow sensor.
Little note what you're fighting when you're putting that in is that little square alignment right there. That's what you're fighting when you're putting it back in.
Don't forget your air filter, wherever it may be. I see it down here somewhere. Air filter sensor lets you know, based on vacuum, how much life you have left in your air filter. Also, it'll throw an engine light or a dash light that it's plugged, that it's time to replace your air filter element. Goes on there.
You'll
Tighten that down.
You'll see some of these missing, broken, or whatever. If you disconnect it, it will not throw a check engine light. It will not throw anything on the dash if you leave this unplugged.
Now I drop my hose clamp. Down here for this.
Most commonly broken nipple
On the
on the
radiator.
radiators. Right there. There is a fix with a 1/4" NPT. You can grind it the rest of the way off and then thread one in there with some either using JB weld or something like that, and it'll seal up if somebody breaks one of these off. Usually what happens is when they're taking the fan shroud off or something, they'll get a little aggressive and or lean on it. We've had people lean on it, put their hand on here and snap that thing right off. Yeah. So not all of the trucks have the little elephant trunk. Somebody's usually deleted them because they were fighting them or whatever, and it goes here. But nice to see when they have them. It just not really a necessary thing, but it is. So this side's done. So he'll be moving on to the other side.
The hard side.
Yeah, the hard side. Yeah, it's always the hard side. That's the side I work on. So a little side note to that. So a lot of time when Vinny's working on these, and like we're doing heads or pulling the cab off or something like that, I always jump on the left side. One, I'm well versed in it. He's well versed in the right side. So when we're pulling the cabs, I'll pull all the AC out and get that all prepped. But I always tease him that this is the hard side, that's the easy side. In actuality, this side's usually done in like around about, for getting the cab off, this one's done in usually like 30 minutes, all prepped out and tied up. His side, on the other hand, takes about an hour and a half when you get it all, because you got all the power steering lines, brakes got to be moved, you got to get down there, and so, but yeah, so we'll just call this the hard side.
It's the hard side for injectors.
It's definitely the hard side for the injectors, because you got the gold plug harness and everything else on it. So we'll be showing a little bit more as he tears that apart.